Ever feel trapped like you're living someone else's dream? What if you could rewrite your story? Ditch the how-to manuals and step into your life's purpose. In this episode of Back to the Heart, we dive deep with best-selling author Jennifer Blanchard, a true master of manifesting and self-healing. Prepare for a raw, honest conversation about transformation, empowerment, and the power of aligning your vibration to find your purpose. Jennifer's journey from corporate life to manifesting queen is a testament to the power of listening to your inner voice and embracing change. Get ready to unlock your potential and discover how to truly live your dream life. This episode is your guide to self-help that actually works and will show you how to take control of your destiny. Hello, my name is Amanda, and welcome to Back to the Heart, a podcast for self-discovery, healing, and embracing true freedom. My name is Amanda, and I am your host, and I invite you to join me as we embark on a transformative journey back to your heart, where we get to choose love over fear. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Back to the Heart. Today, I have a beautiful guest, Jennifer Blanchard, who is a best-selling author, manifesting queen, and knower of all things to live your dream life. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Jennifer has written several books, some nonfiction, which some of you may have heard of, Fuck the How, and talking about manifesting, and also some nonfiction novellas. So it's super exciting to find someone who has found this passion. And Jennifer, let's just kind of get started on how you manifesting, becoming an author as your primary purpose. I love that you were like, okay, fuck this, let's go.
Yeah, so I would say I kind of always knew this is what I was going to do with my life. So from age 11, I was like, I'm going to be an author. That's what I'm going to do. I was reading a lot of like Nicholas Sparks and like R.L. Stine and stuff back then. I was in middle school and just knew like, I love this. This is what I can see myself doing, is like writing stories, writing books. And I never knew that I would do nonfiction really until I went to college and I went for journalism, and I learned a lot about just how to tell a story that's a true story and how to make it interesting to people and things like that. And so I learned a lot about like memoir and things that really allowed me to see that maybe nonfiction could be interesting if you do it in a way that, you know, feels good to you. So I wrote my first nonfiction book in 2010, and I always knew I was going to get to this point where I was going to talk about manifesting, but I feel like I needed to have a journey first where I had stories I could tell and experiences I had gone through to say, okay, this is what I did and how I did it. And so I kind of like I always say, I lead from the trenches, meaning like I'm in the process and I teach from being in it, right? I'm not like a million miles ahead looking back and being like, this is what you need to do. It's like, I'm doing it as I'm explaining it, as I'm teaching it, you know? So like the books I'm writing are alive in the sense that there are things that I'm either learning now or have experienced now that I'm now like, okay, I have a nuance that I can share that's different than how I could have shared it a couple of years ago, because I've learned so much since then. So yeah, I think it was a very long process of having corporate jobs, knowing that wasn't the right fit, deciding I was going to do what I actually wanted to do, quit my job in 2012 to become a full-time author. Did that for a little while and then sort of got distracted by shiny object syndrome, right? So all these things, especially the coaching industry, was kind of becoming an industry at that time. And I was helping people write books because that was something that I could do to make some money while I was growing my author business. And that almost started to become the main thing for a while because it was getting overshadowed by like, I was so involved with like my clients and with helping other people that I wasn't taking the time for my own stuff. And so almost a decade into it, I realized, okay, this has to change or I'm never going to do what I actually want to be doing. And so even though it was really hard in the beginning of January 2021, I decided I have to stop everything. I have to just put an end to everything, even temporarily, so that I can focus on what I know I'm meant to be doing, which is writing more books. And not long after I made that decision, I would say probably maybe even a few days after that, the download for Fuck the How came to me. And it was like, oh my God. Like, not only was it was like clarity on the way I had manifested my divorce years prior. So, like, I hadn't necessarily saw that I had a specific process, but when I got that download, it was so clear to me of like, these are the steps and this is what you do. And this is what I did during that time to manifest my divorce and to then manifest other things from there. And so I wrote that book, and then from there I just continued on, and I've got now 3 manifesting books and a 4th one in the works.
That's awesome. I love that because life is a journey and we are all on this same journey ourselves. And I think that's really profound to be able to, speak from a vulnerability place of, hey, I'm still learning this as I go, and things are going to change. And, you made the pivot from corporate to doing the coaching, but you listen to yourself, to that intuition of this just isn't really aligned anymore. I think so many times people think, everything has to be this all or nothing decision, and I'm going all in or nothing, and I have to do this forever, and if I move I have to live there forever, if I have this job I have to have it forever, if I meet this person it has to be forever. And it's this scary part of us. It's like afraid to make a change and to feel like we're stuck in something. So I love that you really listen to yourself and were like, hey, I love this now, but this shift has happened. So I'm going to pivot and make a change now, knowing that you can change at any time, right?
Yeah. And it's funny you say the all or nothing thing because I feel like I have suffered from that for most of my life. And even now, sometimes I catch myself being very all or nothing about things. And so I've had to really get more like aware of it and notice when I'm doing that so I can go, wait a second. Okay. Like, let's take a step back because we always get to try the things we want to be doing, the things we're interested in. I call that test driving your dreams. So, like, the idea of just taking some time to either research something or try it out a little bit and see if you like it before you just go all in on it, before you decide this is the thing I'm going to do, and giving yourself permission to change your mind. Because, like you said, people can get very stuck in things thinking they have to do it forever, or it has to be the thing that they do for the rest of their life, or the person they have to be with, or the job they have to keep. And it's like giving yourself that permission to know that when something no longer feels right to you, even if in your mind you have all these reasons why you shouldn't change it or it's not a good idea, or you have almost like what's called sunk cost of like, well, I've been doing it for X amount of time, so I
Yes.
might as well just keep going. It's like, give yourself permission and know that if it doesn't feel right anymore, you get to change it. And even if it's just a tweak, right? It doesn't always have to be a major change. It could just be, well, I don't like where I'm living and I like the town I live in, but I don't like this house. So now I need a different like house to live in. Or maybe it's just I need to change up my space a little bit so it feels better to me. And then it can be the same house, but just have a different vibe or, things like that. Or maybe if it is a decent relationship and you're just not feeling what you used to feel, maybe it's just, okay, maybe we need to get reconnected. Maybe we have to go deeper with the relationship. Or maybe it is time to end it. Like, I think you just always get permission to feel what you're feeling and then to decide if you need to make a pivot, if you need to just tweak something, because sometimes it's not a major change that's required. Sometimes it's just something really small that can change everything.
Yeah. And what I've found is sometimes it's just taking that little step because my people pleaser, over controlling past personality was like, okay, well, if you go in, then you need to know steps 2, 3, 4, and 5, or plan B, C, and D. And,
Yep.
oftentimes when we take our eye off the ball of plan A, and we're expecting to see plan B or C, then we're never going to reach plan A. So it's like, let's just take that first step, assuming the best case scenario of plan A is going to work. And once you start taking step 1, 2, 3, then you're going to either continue to stay in that flow and this works, or it's okay to make a change at any point in time. I think that's critical to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I honestly don't think that making a change means you're going with plan B or C. I always say there is only plan A because to me,
Yes.
plan A is this or something better. And sometimes you start doing something and then you notice a tweak, you notice a different angle, and then that becomes a something better. So it's still your plan A, it's just a different version of it. And maybe not how you imagined it at the beginning, but it becomes something better than you could have imagined. Like if I had said to myself in 2010 when I was writing my very first book, like I'm going to end up here. I could have never known that, right? Like I could have never known I was going to write these manifesting books and I was going to, be able to talk about it in the way that I do and share in the way that I do. Because back then I was just getting good at being consistent. Like my first book was about how to overcome procrastination because I was so bad at doing the things I wanted to be doing. So like, if I had thought, well, I had to be here, I never could have figured out how to get here, you know? So it's like, this is my plan A and it has been all along. It's just, it took different iterations to come to this place, you know? I think where people get stuck is when they want plan A, but then they plan for B, C, D. So they're like, well, in case this doesn't work, I'm going to do these other things, or I'm going to have this going just in case. And it's like, if you come up with a plan B, a plan C, you're going to get those because you're putting energy into them versus knowing that you always get to have what you want or something better. So if you keep focused on plan A with an open mind that maybe the universe is going to show me another angle or another opportunity that I didn't realize I wanted to begin with. And just like staying open while knowing what you want, I think is the key to continuing down the path of plan A.
Yeah, I love that because what we focus on, that is what we're going to attract.
Right.
Yeah. I love how, you talked a little bit more about not only just the law of attraction, but that vibration frequency. Do you want to expand a little bit on that and tell our audience that maybe haven't heard as much about that side of the law of attraction?
Yes, yes. So law of attraction says that like attracts like, right? But what they miss a lot of the times when people say that is like attracts like at the level of vibration, which means everything in the entire world, including us, is vibrating. We're all made of energy. Everything is made of energy. So everything has a vibrational frequency, and each frequency is unique. So in order to attract the things you desire to have, you have to match the vibe or the frequency of those things. And the way to do that, there's really a couple ways to do it. So the first easiest way is to just feel good, because when you find ways to feel good, you're matching the vibe of everything you desire to have that also feels good. Because the reason we want the things is because we believe it's going to make us feel better. We're going to be happier having it. We're going to be more excited about life if we have the thing we want. So you're going for the feel good in everything, no matter what it is that you want. So if you just find ways to feel good now, you're matching the vibe of what you want and everything else that is on that same vibe. Another option is if you can think of the specific emotions that you believe you'll feel having what you want. So let's say you're like, I want a new car. Well, what emotions do you believe you'll feel having that new car? I'm going to feel excited. I'm going to be really happy that I get to drive it. I'm going to feel proud of myself because I was able to buy this myself. Like, those are emotions that you can create now. Feeling proud, feeling happy, feeling excited. And if you look for ways to create that right now, even if it's not because you have a new car, but you look at, well, what in my life already makes me feel those emotions? So maybe you get really happy when you spend time with your cat. So it's like, spend more time with your cat. When you do that, you're in the vibe and in the emotional state of feeling happy. And so that is matching the vibe of that car that you want, and anything else is also on that same vibe. And so the more you can sort of think about what it is you want to feel emotionally, and then look at where you already feel those, and then give yourself permission to spend more time doing those activities or with those people or in those places, the more you're going to be matching the vibe of what you want. And then you can attract the things that you desire to have. And then the other thing you can do is you can ask yourself, what else could I be doing to create that vibe more for myself? So maybe it's like, well, if I went on a walk every morning, I would be really happy. So that's something you could add into your life to create and to continue creating more of that feel good state. So I think that's really what it means to match the vibe. It's just the emotions and what are we feeling? Because I think most of the time we're operating on autopilot. We're not really thinking about, how am I feeling today? What do I want to feel today? We're kind of letting our day create reactive emotions in us. And so if we can first decide, this is how I want to feel, and these are the things I'm going to do to feel that emotion, then even if things in life happen that we are reactive to, we've at least taken that time to cultivate the emotional state we desire to have. And even doing that for 5 minutes a day is way more powerful than just continuing to live unconsciously.
That's so true. I've found that I use the feel good list a lot whenever I'm feeling triggered, and if I am just going through those motions, and I'm like, okay, I realize, which is the key point, right, of realizing that this isn't where I want to be. It's like once you get to the place of like you see that there's another option, then whenever those moments happen, you may not realize sometimes in that moment if you're being triggered of like this really sucks, whether it's some connection or interaction with another person, or with the job, or just within your physical well-being. Sometimes it's just getting yourself out of that funk and feeling like, okay, I know that I don't want to feel this way, so what are those things on my list that can get me out of it? And for me, sometimes it takes more than one thing on that list. Sometimes I'm going down to like number 3 or 4. And for me, it's, getting outside. I think getting outside in the sunshine is critical. We've all been scared to get out in the sun, and the sun re-energizes and connects us. And grounding, and hug a tree, get your body moving, go
Yep.
walking. If I can, take my dog walking. So now it's like all of these feel good things of being outside, getting the sun, moving my body, spending time with my dog, getting fresh air, like all of these feel good things. And sometimes it takes more than one,
Yeah.
maybe it's 5, to transmute that energy of like, I don't want to be in this space. I know that there's another space to get into. And it's not like a toxic positivity or I'm just going to fake it. It's okay to feel those feelings, but it's just knowing that, okay, I have a time and a place to feel these frustrating feelings or the not vibe that I want to be in, but knowing that I have the choice
Yes.
to get out of it.
Exactly. That's the key, what you just said. You have a choice because it is a choice at the end of the day to have something bad happen and then just let it ruin your entire day versus letting something bad happen, dealing with it for a little while, and then changing how you want to feel because knowing that you don't have to say. So, one of these quotes I actually, I think it was Women's Health Magazine, it's from a long time ago, but it said, shit happens, but that doesn't mean you have to stand in it. Meaning you can change it if you choose to. You don't have to let it ruin every day, every week of your life. Like you can say, okay, something bad happened or something I didn't like or whatever, deal with it for a few minutes, and then choose intentionally that I don't want to stay here. I don't want to continue feeling this emotion. I want to feel better. I want to feel good. And using things like the feel good list to get yourself out of that state. Like music is a really good one. I think is easy
Oh,
for
yeah.
people. Put on some music. I have like a feel good playlist. So it's like I know I can put that on at any time and it's going to change how I feel because I'll start singing and then I'll start moving to the music. And next thing I know, I'm like dancing through the living room with my dog and forgetting that something even happened, you know? So I think it's just having the tools, knowing that they're available to us, and then giving, again, permission to not stay stuck in it because otherwise we will allow ourselves to just wallow in those bad feelings because we're used to it. And so it is a practice and it is a choice to say, I'm going to feel what I'm feeling and then I'm going to go do something to make myself feel better. And that's the way to cultivate not only a happier life, but also to be continuously in the vibe of the things you desire to have for your life.
Yeah, because it's so easy to get wrapped up. And whenever, those things that don't make us feel good happen, then our natural tendency is to look for, well, this sucks. So then something else is going to suck. And then something else sucks.
Yep.
And then it's like this snowball effect that we have the power to decide which direction is this snowball going to go. And it's oftentimes I get in that place where I'm like, oh my God, all of a sudden there's like 4 shitty things happen. And it's like, oh no, I'm creating this because I'm in that space and I am attracting more of it. So, what are those feel good things that I can go back to get out of it? So, I love that so much. And that kind of leads me to the next thing I wanted to bring up was one of your references to the certainty list of, just seeing, we can look for the things that are going to go wrong, right? But we can also flip that and look for the things that are going right and look
Yep.
at the things that we are certain about. So will you expand a little bit about the certainty list?
Yeah, yeah. So the thing with manifesting that you hear a lot of times, like teachers and in books and things, is people will say you have to be certain and you have to have expectation of the thing you desire to have showing up. Otherwise, it's not going to come. And I don't really think that that's true, but I think if you want to cultivate more certainty and more expectation around what you're manifesting, the way to do it is to have a list or some sort of a practice where you remind yourself of the things you feel certain about, of the things you're like, I know this 100% to be true, of good things, obviously, not like negative things. But like, for example, I 100% know that I was always meant to be a writer, that I was born to be a writer, that this is what I was meant to do with my life. Like, I couldn't think of anything else that I feel more certain about besides that. I know that I have the absolute best dog for me. Like there's not another dog personality that could have ever come into my life that would have been better for me than this dog that I have. Like I feel 100% certain about that. You know, I feel certain that I am a super creative person with tons of great ideas, and I can come up with new ideas at the drop of a hat. Like I'm so good at that, and I feel so certain in that that like I would never question it. You know what I mean? So it's like when you kind of steep yourself in the things you do feel the certainty about, you're creating the emotional state of certainty. And in doing that, even if it's not certainty about the thing you're manifesting, you're in the emotional state of certainty. And so that feeling is just going to expand out, and you'll be able to transfer it to other things that you feel less certain about. And so you can look at, well, what are the things I feel certain about with what I am manifesting? So if you're manifesting, again, I keep going back to the car. So it's like if you're manifesting a car, it's like, well, what do you feel certain about relating to that car? Well, I feel certain that I will find the right car for me at some point. I feel certain that I can afford to buy this car. I feel certain that I have the job or the business that supports me in being able to financially handle whatever I need to with this car. And it's like, maybe things like that, it's not necessarily the car itself coming into your life, but it's like, what do I feel certain about with regard to this? I feel certain I can trust myself to make the right decision when it comes to this car, like whatever it might be. And you can just tap into the things you do have some certainty about. And that will just create more of it around that thing that you're manifesting and around the other areas of your life where you would like to feel more certain.
Yeah, I love that for sure. Um, Another thing that as it really inspired me, you had where I found your work, Jennifer, was a friend of mine had referred me to you, and I found you on Facebook, and you had the 100-day challenge at the end of the year last year. And I really think that that is beautiful because, as you have mentioned so many times, people at the end of the year are like, oh shit, what's left? And I didn't get these things done. And like, oh, well, I'll just wait till next year. So I love that you inspired yourself, in finishing your book, and you really inspired me with that 100-day challenge because that was right at the time whenever I was getting started with creating this podcast. So I really want to extend my gratitude to you and lighting that fire under my ass that I really needed to do to take
Yeah.
the steps. And sometimes it's just one step, and there's going to be things that get us off track, or we see something shiny, or have the self-doubts or whatever it may be, but it's just one step each day. So it has really been a true blessing to be able to have that inspiration behind that 100-day challenge that you put out the end of last year. So I really appreciate that and getting
Yeah.
me started and sharing this with you today.
Yeah. And look how far you've come. That's amazing. It's amazing.
Exactly.
And it's a fun challenge.
Exactly.
I actually do that challenge every year. So last year was the ninth year that I had done it. And the reason I started it is because I discovered that my birthday is actually 100 days left in the year. And so I thought, how fun is that to like take my birthday as a day to go, okay, what am I going to focus on for the next 100 days of this year? And like really end my year on a positive, upbeat note, no matter what's going on in my physical reality. Because this past year was a little chaotic, and I was sick during half the month of December. Like I had a lot of stuff going on that just like was kind of taking my attention away. But having my goal and having the stuff I was focusing on with the challenge helped me to still finish the year, having my book completed, and actually having recorded an audiobook that I wasn't expecting to have time for, but I was able to squeeze it in. And so it's like, I just love having like, I personally am just big on challenges and big on like, okay, I'm going to set 30 days and this is what I'm going to do. And that just helps me to like have a time frame and to know that I'm not doing this forever, but I'm just really focusing on a set period of time that's going to help me to make something happen. And then the community aspect, having other people doing it along with you just makes it a lot easier to stay accountable, because I'm like, well, I'm leading this thing. So I got to make sure I show up, and I got to make sure that I
Yeah.
do what I said I'm going to do, because if I don't, then I'm not a very good leader. So that helps me too. And I love having other people that actually join, and getting to see that they made progress too. They achieve their goals, because it just makes me feel like this is why we do this, right? Like this, having just people around us who think the same way we do, and who help us to feel motivated and inspired to go for the things we want for our lives.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get in a silo of thinking that we're out here all alone and we're going through stuff that nobody else knows, nobody
Yep.
else understands. And to be able to find a community that can help you reach your goals is so important. And, regardless of who that's with, I might not be somebody's, might not like me, and that's okay.
Yep.
Somebody may not like you, and that's okay. There's
Yep.
plenty of people out there who have different communities who you can help rely on, whether it's something in your, physical life, your finances, your personal relationships, but having that community and that cohesive unit to help keep each other inspired is so important. And I feel like I've really seen a lot of shift in myself as I've gone through my own personal healing journey, and that people around me, I realize just like kind of refreshing back what we were saying earlier about the energy, and we keep attracting more. It's like when you start making those little shifts, even the people around you start to shift, because no longer am I vibing with that same negative energy and frequency that I was with before, of people who are complaining all the time and still not making any changes, or complaining
Yep.
about the same thing. They're talking about other people to help themselves feel better. They're complaining about the weather all the time, the news, the politics, whatever, all these things that are outside of them, without looking within and doing that work within. So for me, it's been a unique challenge to kind of come back to myself and find that community of people, because oftentimes it's not the people that are physically around me anymore, which were what I call situationships,
Yeah.
of like they're just convenient because they're close. Now it's like proactively selecting the community that are in alignment, that are reaching for those same goals, and aren't letting the bullshit on the outside take them off the path every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's
no,
so
that's
true
so true
because
because
I don't necessarily, because they say the five people you spend the most time with, you're going to be more like those people. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I think maybe that's true if you're not conscious of like yourself and how you're doing things, then it is easy to like let other people kind of turn you into like a version of them. But I think if you're someone who knows what you want, who's focused, who's going for the things that they desire, who has awareness, then you can be around people that aren't necessarily doing that, and it's not going to drag you down. But I think it's important to also have people that we can go to, that we have not only just like as confidants, as like I can tell you things, I can talk to you about stuff, I can vent when I need to, and you completely are going to be supportive of that, but you're going to also catch me and say, okay, it's time to rethink differently and to change how you're thinking, because if you don't have that, it is a little bit harder, I think, to do it for ourselves sometimes. So like I've always had an accountability buddy, and that has helped me to have somebody that I know I can always turn to and go, hey, this is what's going on right now, or I'm feeling really frustrated, or whatever it might be. And then they can recognize things in me that I'm not going to catch myself, and they can go, okay, I'm noticing that you're being a little all or nothing. I'm noticing that you're getting a little perfectionist about it. Like maybe you need to take a breath. Maybe you need to step back and just look at things from a different perspective. And it's like, it's so helpful to have that, because it is hard to do for ourselves. And I think it's about not having to cut people off, because I think like for a lot of people, our families, maybe the people we've been friends with physically in our realities are not necessarily the same type of people that we are. And maybe we've grown and changed a lot. But I don't think that necessarily means we have to get rid of those people. I think it just means we also have to make sure we have community that is people who think like we do and who understand the things we do, so that we can keep growing and expanding ourselves and not get pulled down into the complaining, the nonsense, etc. Because for me, like my accountability person, she will call me out if I'm talking too much negative about myself, or if I'm complaining about something too long. She will literally call me out and be like, hey, you have to stop now. Like it's time to go down a different path. It's time to whatever it is. Versus my mom will just sit there and complain with me for an hour, because that's what she does anyway. So like,
yeah.
I'm not going to get pulled out of it in that situation when I would want to be pulled out of it. I wouldn't want to spend an entire hour complaining about something. So it's like I love having that space where I know I get to spend time with people in my life, and I also know that I have people who can help me to continue growing and expanding beyond where I am right now.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like for me, I feel like I'm still in this healing part, right? That my perimeter is still a little weak. So I have to like kind of limit myself of how much of that energy I'm able to release around others. But the
Yep.
ultimate goal is to be so confident within myself to be able to shine my light bright enough that, even if somebody else is in that state of negativity and draining, that stuff just flows through me
Yep.
or bounces off of me and no longer is absorbed into me and pulls me down, so that I'm able to be myself and see changes and improvements possibly in the people around me, instead of me being the negative effect of whatever's going on with them.
Yeah. And also, there's a law. What is the name of it? Perpetual transmutation of energy. Basically means whoever has the highest vibe in the situation is going to raise everybody to that. So if everybody in the space is negative, low vibe, whoever has the highest one of all of that is going to be the energy that kind of creates everything else. So if you are working on yourself and you are in a really good mind space and you feel confident and you can go into these situations, people's energy will transmute based on you anyway. So like in that situation, they'll complain a little less. They'll be a little happier. They'll have more positive things to say simply because you're there and your energy is transmuting theirs. Versus if they are in a space where they're not around anybody like that, they will get more sucked into that negative spiral because of the fact that there isn't anybody with a higher energy to pull them up from it. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Like, keep building that confidence and knowing that, like, you get to shine your light. You get to be a positive vibe in the world, and that you always bring that with you everywhere you go, and that it will change people just by you being you.
Yeah, I love that for sure. Um, and I think that, kind of transitioning a little bit, so much of us as humans, especially as women, we have gotten into this world of feeling like we've got to do all of these things all the time, versus, that's kind of on the masculine side, and then the feminine is more of just being,
Yep.
but being able to know and decipher the differences in between, and recognizing those inspired nudges that you mentioned. So would you expand a little bit about those, of like listening, but not feeling like there's something that has to be done or whatever? I
Yeah.
think you get
So
like two different action types, right?
yeah. So basically, with manifesting, with whatever it is you're desiring to create for yourself, there are two parts, right? Because you do have to have the action part, and that is a big part of manifesting. I think a lot of people think manifesting just means I'm supposed to sit here and do nothing and things are just supposed to happen. And it's like, well, sometimes that might happen, but most of the time you're going to be doing something, right? Because manifesting is an active, like I would say, receiving is an active thing. It's not, I'm going to sit down on my couch and just twiddle my thumbs until what I want shows up and falls in my lap. It's like, there's both parts, but there is a big part that we're not as practiced at, and that is the leaning back, the surrendering part. Like, we're all really good at action most of the time, especially people who are motivated and who have big goals, because we know that we have to take action or nothing's going to happen. And so we are constantly in that do sort of energy. And the other part of it is like knowing when we have to lean back a little bit and go, okay, I've done enough. I've taken enough action now. I also need to let the universe do its part, because it is a co-creation, right? So we're not trying to do all this ourselves. We're trying to co-create with an energy that wants to help us make things easier for us, give us more opportunities and solutions and things we maybe don't have in our limited vantage point. So by being open to, okay, I'm going to ask for what I want, and I'm going to talk about the specific way to do that. But knowing what you want, and then knowing that the universe will work with you to get it, and that you don't have to do every single thing yourself, that it's not on you to do everything. You get to lean back a little. You get to have a little bit more surrender and trust that, okay, as long as I'm not just sitting here doing nothing, the universe is going to show up for me and help me, as long as I'm moving in a direction, right? So I think it's a couple of things. So first, I used to say ask, right? Ask for what you want, tell the universe what you want. I used to use like a surrender statement, which you can still do if you're feeling like I'm very, like, I'm not good at surrendering. But really, I think the key thing is gratitude in advance. So rather than having to ask for things, because I think asking sort of comes with this permission thing where it's like I have to get the universe's permission to have this. And that's not at all the case. Like, the universe sends you your dreams and desires because it wants to experience them with you. And so you don't need to ask. Be grateful in advance as if it's already happened. So thank you, universe, for helping me to find the next client in my business. Thank you for helping me to find the next guest for my podcast. Like, thank you for leading me to the most amazing person who's going to have great things to share with my audience. And just trusting that you're going to do your part, which is what you know to do. So what you know to do as a podcast person who needs to interview people. Well, you're going to make connections and you're going to read books and you're going to check people out who you think would be interesting to connect with and to ask questions with. And as you do that, the universe is going to send you these little nudges of like, a book drops in your lap. So you're like walking through a bookstore and a book just happens to like stand out to you. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you look at it and you're like reading about it and going, oh, I should interview this person. And then you reach out to them and it's like, and they get back to you and they're like, I was literally thinking about doing more podcast interviews. And then you just emailed me. Like, how crazy is that? And it's because the universe led that to you because you were in process of it. You were doing what you knew to do, trusting that something would show up for you, right? The how would show up for you if you did what you know to do, which is so important. And so I think it's kind of just like a delicate dance, I guess, of like, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm not going to sit around thinking that it's just going to work for me. I'm going to do what I know to do. And then as I feel inspired to do something, as I feel a nudge to do something, I'm going to trust that nudge. I'm going to act on it. I'm going to make that phone call. I'm going to email that person and ask the question. I'm going to whatever it might be for you, knowing that that's the universe trying to lead you to the how of getting what you wanted, which is a successful podcast or finding your next guest or whatever it might be. And so we have to do both of those things. And I think, like I said, we're all good at action. So I think the bigger thing is, are you leaning back? Are you giving the universe permission and space to help you? And when it does try to help you, when it sends you ideas or nudges, are you just like logically thinking through those things a million times, or are you just trusting that, oh, that feels really good, I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to go take that action, or I'm going to go ask that question or email that person, not trying to make it a logical thing. Well, is that really the right thing? And they have a huge audience, so maybe I shouldn't talk to them right now because I'm just getting started, and why would they want me to interview them? And like, it's like putting all that logical stuff aside and just trusting you felt called to email that person and ask them to be on your podcast for a reason, and just trust that feeling and go. And even if it doesn't work out, like, it's building that confidence that like you can trust the way you feel and the nudges that you get, and knowing that they're going to lead you to the ultimate outcome at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and I can definitely relate. Even whenever I asked you to be on this podcast, it's like, wow, I've been watching Jennifer, and she's like got all these books, and she's doing all these things, and why would she want to be? I'm just getting started. But it's like when people have the genuine passion, of what they want to do, and they want to share the information, then why not? I mean,
Yeah.
if you said no, you said no, right? That's
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
But it's like not asking and not even trying is just holding yourself back. Like
Yeah.
it's like listening to that little inspired nudge, right? And just say, fuck it, I'm gonna go with it, right? And not letting all of the normal self-doubts come in of why this and why that. It's just, let's go with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think what most people do is they talk themselves out of things. They go, oh, well, I'm not big enough yet, or I don't have enough of a following,
Mhm.
or why would they want to talk to me? And it's like, same thing. I used to do a podcast, and there was a book that I had found, this woman, Penny Pierce, and she had this amazing book called Frequency, which is all about like your energy and how you get on the frequency of the things you want. And I was same thing. I was like, why would she want to be on my podcast? But I was just like, I'm just going to ask her, because why not? And she was like, I would love to. And she gave me an amazing interview that I still refer back to all the time, because I'm like, she was so insightful and like had so much good stuff to say. And it's like, you don't know where someone is at in their life, in their business, in their what they're going for. And so you don't know that like you asking them might be exactly the thing that they were looking for right now. Like I've been saying for a while, I want to get out there more. I want to be on more podcasts. So when you asked me, it was like, of course, I don't care how big your podcast is. Like, I want to say yes, because I think you're interesting. I think you have good things that you're doing. And I think that this could be helpful, even if only a handful of people see it at first. It's like, it's worth it to just have the conversation. And it's like, this has been such a good conversation that I can't wait to share with people, And so it's like, there's so much that we can get out of things if we just trust the way they feel. It's like, don't follow a nudge if it feels bad. If you're like, oh God, I would never want to do that. Like, don't do that. But if you feel like, man, that would be so exciting, how cool would it be? It's like, those are the things we have to trust a little more, and not try to come up with a logical reason why we shouldn't do it, because we will talk ourselves out of it. So it's like, do the action and do it as quick as you can, because the longer you wait, the more you're going to come up with logical reasons why you shouldn't do it. And you're going to rationalize it. And well, I don't know. And like, just do it. And then you'll feel more excited, because you'll be like, well, I did the thing. And even if I got a no, I'm proud of myself for doing what I felt called to do and for saying the thing I felt called to say. And then next time the nudge comes, you're going to trust it more and you're going to take action faster. And then it's actually going to work out. And it's like, it's a practice, right? We have to get better at not only hearing and being receptive to those nudges, but then trusting ourselves to take the action when we feel called to, and knowing that like it's going to get us where we want to go, even if logically we can't see where it's leading right now, you know?
Yeah, I think so many times I have forgotten how to listen to that nudge and listen to that inner knowing, that intuition. And, I think a lot of it is, having heard people tell me things or hear words that people say over my entire life, that they say the words, but the actions don't match.
Yep.
Right? Or I may say that I'm going to do something, but then my actions don't match. So it's like these little bitty nuggets that we can add into building up that trust muscle within ourselves and listening to that and just going with that gut instinct. And especially as women, we have this inner knowing and intuition that unfortunately we've kind of gone away from knowing how to find and listen. So I think there's probably even a lot of people out there listening who may be in a place where they know that, or they have a feeling. Let's say they have a feeling. They're not in the knowing yet. They're in the feeling that I'm not happy with what I'm doing. I'm not happy with where I am, be it a job or a relationship, but not even knowing what they do want yet. Because for me, I kind of got into a space where I kind of disappeared into the relationship. I kind of disappeared into the corporate job. And I had gone through so much people pleasing that I didn't even know really what I actually wanted.
Yep.
To say, okay, well, once I know what I want, then I can not care how it's going to happen. I just can get to it. But some people just don't even know how to know what they want. So, what would you
Yeah.
say to those people? It's just recognizing that this isn't it. I don't know what I want, but how can I get back to myself, to listen to myself, to know what I actually do want?
So I think I don't think that we don't know what we want. I think it's that we either haven't given ourselves permission to want it, or we've maybe just like been disconnected from it for so long that we almost feel like it's not possible for us anymore. And so it's really, I think, about permission. It's about deciding like I get to have what I want no matter what it is, even if it feels like a pipe dream or it feels like something crazy big that it's like I don't even know how I would make that happen. But giving yourself permission to just know that you get to have whatever it is you want, and then permission to be okay with whatever it might be, because like I said, I think we always know what we want. Maybe it's been hidden from us for a little while, or we kind of feel like, oh well, it's never going to work out, I'm too old, it's too late, like whatever. But if you just took all of that away and you were just like, let's say in a white room with nothing else in there, it was just like white walls, white floor, white ceiling, and you're just standing there all by yourself and no one was going to listen and no one was judging you, and you could just say what you actually wanted, I guarantee almost every single person would know exactly what they wanted, or some version of it. They maybe not know the exact thing, but they would be like, I want to be happier, I want to feel better every day, I want a better relationship. Like they may not be able to pinpoint, I want this specific thing, but they know in general what they want, or the in general like version of what they want. So permission, I think, is the biggest factor with knowing what you want, is just granting yourself that permission to actually say what it is, and permission to admit it to yourself, if nowhere else, to the universe, maybe to someone else, if you feel someone that you feel comfortable around telling them that this is what you want, like, because it starts there. And once you can do that, then you can move towards something. But until you can do that, you're not going to have a direction. You're just going to be kind of just stuck wherever you are, because you're going to just tell yourself, well, I don't really know what I want. And honestly, I think not saying you don't know what you want is also a really good excuse to keep you small, to keep you stuck, to keep
Yes.
you feeling like you don't have to make any changes, even though you really want to. But it's like it's easier to not have to admit what you want, because once you admit what you want, then you have to deal with all the things that come along with it, like not knowing how, feeling disappointed it hasn't happened yet, worrying that it's not possible for you. And so I think it feels easier to just not admit it sometimes. But if you can just take all that away and just go, I'm just going to say what I want right now. It's like, admit it. And that for me was a huge step. Like when I was manifesting my divorce, that was so huge for me when I decided I was going to have the universe. I was going to surrender the outcome of my relationship to the universe and have the universe decide for me what I wanted, like, or what was going to happen. It was like, that was my first time that I admitted that I knew I wanted something better. And I didn't know exactly what it was, if it was that relationship changing or if it was the relationship going away completely and a new one coming in. But I just finally allowed myself to admit that I wanted something better than what I had. And that was such a huge step. And then everything else sort of unfolded from there. So I think it's just that permission and then allowing yourself to know that like you get to have it as long as you can at least look at what it is that you want.
Yeah, for sure. So you brought up that previous relationship. There was one part in "Fuck the How" that I think is worth bringing back up to the audience about, kind of releasing what your feelings are. And you talked about writing. I don't know if you said writing or like creating like this soul conversation
Oh, yeah.
with your ex. Do you tell the audience a little bit more about that? Because I think that's really helpful for people to use, whether that's in a relationship or a friend or a family member or something. I think that's a really important tool to share.
Yes. So the thing with that was there was so many things I felt that I needed to say to my husband at the time, ex now. But I just knew that I would never be able to get the words out in person or physically because not only had I tried before, but it was just like even when I had tried, he wasn't receptive to how I was to what I was saying. He just sort of would brush it all off. And there were just things that I knew I could never ever say to him in person or to his face because they were just not, he wasn't going to accept them. Some of them were even not things about him, but more about like just me and how I felt about something and experiences I'd gone through in my life that he wasn't even willing to hear me out about because he had a belief that it was I shouldn't have acted that way or I shouldn't have made that decision. And so it was like I couldn't even talk to him about certain things because he would just shut it down right away. So what I did was, and this was actually an inspired action or inspired nudge that had come to me, was that I decided, okay, I'm going to have a soul conversation with him. And I actually have done this with not just him, but with other people as well, where I got into a meditative state. So just close your eyes, do some breathing. And then I called his soul in to speak with me. And I imagined like a chair sitting in front of me. And I imagined him or his soul, whatever you want to call it, like sitting down in front of me. And then I just said everything I had to say in the meditation. So it was like me in my mind talking to him in this meditation. And I was like saying all the things I needed to say, like all the things I felt all these years that I could never say to you in person because you weren't receptive or you weren't willing to hear me out. And I just said everything I needed to say. And I felt like as I did that, not only did I release that from myself, but I almost felt like he heard all of those things, even though he maybe didn't hear it on a physical level. Like I feel like his soul got the message. And I feel like that was a big part of the process of him getting to the point where he was ready to say he wanted a divorce. It was like whatever needed to happen for him happened through that conversation, and it led to him to take other actions and do other things in his life, and got to him to that point where he just realized that it just wasn't right anymore. And I had realized that a while back. It's just we hadn't come to that agreement together, and I feel like that was a huge thing. I've also used that same meditation with I called him my between relationships guy. So like the guy that I would always go back to between my relationships because I was in love with him and obsessed with him. But for however many years we had been going back and forth, he just wasn't that into me. You know, like he was into me enough in the moment, but he wasn't willing to rearrange his life for me. He wasn't willing to go deeper with me on anything. So it was like I just kept wasting so much energy in that situation. And I was like, okay, I have to let him go, but I will never be able to do that if I don't tell him that I'm in love with him, that I want to be with him. And like, even though I couldn't say that to his face because I knew that physically that was just not the right thing to do, I did it in a soul conversation where I was like, I have to tell him these things, or I'm going to tell him in this meditation. And I did that. And I really feel like that was a big part of me being able to finally put the nail in the coffin of knowing that that was never going to be the right thing for me. But like, until I could say those words to him, even in that type of meditation, I know I couldn't have walked away from the situation because I would have kept feeling like, but I'm in love with him. And how can I walk away knowing that I never told him that? And it's like, I told his soul that. And if he truly loved me and truly wanted to be with me, his soul got the message. It would have come in the physical reality and it would have made something happen, but it didn't. And that's how I know it wasn't right. And it was the right thing for me to let him go, but it was the right thing to also not say that stuff to his face. Because I think people do that sometimes. They think like, oh, I'm just going to go tell this person I'm in love with them. And like, but sometimes that's not the right thing to do, you know, because it's like if I had done that, I feel like it would have made a disaster of the situation and we wouldn't be friends today because I would have resented him. I would have hated him. He would have felt awkward around me. But because I didn't do that, I did it in a soul conversation. I felt like I could release what I needed to release without destroying our physical relationship that we have, and we can still be friends, and we can still go like support each other in our lives without having to be involved in a romantic way.
Yeah, I think that's so important because there are going to be these relationships that come throughout our lives, and maybe with family too, or when coworkers or things where it may not be to anyone's advantage to say these things out loud. I know
Yeah.
I've had some thoughts that swirl around in my mind about my relationship with my family, and with previous friends or whatever, and it's like, well, I could say all those things, but if I know that it's not actually going to, I'm not saying it with an intention of a specific response for them to give me. And I think that my words would hurt them or
Yep.
make the situation worse for them. But I need to let it go.
Yep.
I need to cut that cord. I need to release that. I think these types of conversations, just getting still and being in that moment, in that meditative state, are so incredibly important. So I
Yeah.
congratulate you on seeing that and being able to release that. And I hope that somebody out there is listening and maybe going through a situation where they have something that has been bottled up. And I find that when these stories get in our heads, they just get crazier and faster and, just kind of swirl around so much. So getting it out, whether it's in a meditative state and you're just saying it to yourself with your eyes closed and nobody hears it, or writing it down, can definitely be therapeutic and getting the story on paper, even if that piece of paper is immediately shredded or burned or
Yep.
frozen or whatever, but just getting the story out
Yeah.
of where it's getting
Stuck.
stuck.
Yeah.
Because it's like these emotions and these feelings, if they're stuck here, then they get stuck in our bodies.
Yep.
And then we're going to eventually get sick. These emotions get trapped and it can cause physical harm. So
Yep.
I commend you for seeing that and being able to share that with people that worked for you. And I think that can work for a lot of people. I've done that a lot myself.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to remember is that we're all connected, right? Like we're all of one mind. It's just we are separated into individual humans so that we can have a life experience. And at the end of the day, we're all made of the same energy. We're all made of the same stuff. So it's like technically doing something like that, you are sending the message to the other person, even if you aren't physically sending it to them. They are getting that message on a soul level because of the fact that we're all connected. And even if nothing ever comes of it and they don't ever bring it up or anything like that, like you can trust that their soul got the message. Their higher self got the message. And it may change their life in some way, it may not. But the whole point is that you let it go and they got the message. I
Yeah, and
swear.
it was like it was able you were able to release it for you, and you were also able to release them. And
Yes.
that allowed that freedom within for your ex to be able to feel that release from you, that maybe he was waiting.
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
waiting for
Exactly.
you to release him, of like, he knew it wasn't where, you guys needed to be, but he still loved you and cared for you in a certain way, that he didn't want to hurt you, just like you didn't want to hurt him. But at some point we have to step into our power and do what is best for us,
Yep.
even if we assume that it's going to hurt someone else, us assuming that we know what someone else's feelings or what someone else's desires
And we
are,
don't.
only hurting ourselves.
Yeah, because you don't really know. Like I had all these stories made up of what I thought was going to happen if I told him I wanted to break up and whatever. And so it was like it felt safer to not do any of those things. But I did those things in my meditation, and it's like you said, maybe it was he was waiting for me to say those things. Maybe he was waiting to hear those things. And by me doing that in the meditative soul conversation, he got the message, and he felt that release of like, okay, I feel the same way. I get to now start moving my life in another direction, and that's exactly what I think happened because he started hanging out with different people. I'm pretty sure he met another girl. And like it all just led to it's time for us to not be together anymore. And I just don't think any of that would have happened if I didn't finally make the decision to go, I'm going to let all this stuff out. Because, and like, yeah, people will argue and say, why wouldn't you just say it to his face? And why wouldn't you just tell him in person? And it's like the mess that would have been created by me doing that was not how I wanted to handle the situation. Like that was not, and also that wasn't what I was led to do. Like this was an inspired action. I didn't just make this up. Like it came to me one day when I was like, I was folding laundry and it was like, boom, I should have a meditative slow conversation with him and tell him all these things. And like I said, I've used it a lot since then, but it's like that came to me because it was an inspired action, because I was in surrender around what was going to happen with the relationship. And I was just trusting that if I stayed in my positive vibe and my doing my part, that the universe was going to show up for me. And it did.
That's wonderful. I love that. Well, where can our audience find out more about you?
So the best place is if you want to just check out my books and all of that, dreamlifeorbust.com. It will take you to my Amazon page with all my books so you can see all the different ones. There's a bunch on manifesting. There's some on test driving your dreams, and things like that. So I think that's probably the best place. Or if you are on the internet and you want to use it, or on social media, of course you're on the internet. You're on social media, and you want to go to Instagram. I'm on at the Feel Good Life on Instagram. I'm on TikTok at Fuck the How. So I've got tons of videos on there about manifesting and about all the stuff we talked about here. So those are good places as well.
Great. Well, I will put all of your links in the show notes, but is there anything that you would like to leave, last words of advice to our audience who are looking to make changes in their life and live their dream life?
So yeah, so I would say I'll bring back what I said before, which is gratitude in advance. There's nothing that has changed my life more than gratitude in advance. Like I every single day now I'm using gratitude in advance to come up with solutions, to find connections that I need, to get resources, to get ideas for stuff. I'm always just like, thank you, universe, for helping me to do this. Thank you, universe, for that. It's like I have this ring that I wear right here, and I constantly lose it because I always take it off to put lotion on, or I wash my hands and I leave it on the counter, and I lose it all the time. But I never go looking for it. I just go, universe, thank you for helping me to find my ring. And then it's like a day or two goes by, and then I'm walking into the other room and I get a nudge to check under the couch. Boom, there's the ring. Or like, I found this thing in the most crazy ways. It's like, it's ridiculous, but it's because I'm not trying to find it anymore. I'm just letting the universe, like, hey, I'm delegating so much stuff to the universe now. I'm just like, hey, I need your help with this. I need you to figure out this. I need you to do this. And it's like, I always get the resources, the things when I just trust that the answer is going to show up. Like, I'm actually working on launching a second business right now. And this is like totally DL. I haven't even talked about this to anybody. But I need some financial resources to be able to get started because it's a business that actually requires a little bit of some stuff I have to buy up front and some permits and things like that. And so I was like, how am I going to get this money? I don't know. So I was literally like, universe, thank you for helping me to figure out how to fund this business. And like 2 days later, I get nudge to check this, like Google this one phrase, which led me to this article, which showed me this grant. And not only is it a grant for women businesses, but they're literally located in my city. And I was like, how like divine is that? And so I'm going to apply for this grant. And I don't know if I'll get it or not, but the point is like, it led me to that, which could potentially be the financial resources that I need to get this business started. And so it's like, I just trust that now. And I just constantly am handing things over to the universe and knowing that I do not have to figure everything out. I do not have to do all the work, that I get to put heavy lifting on the universe and it can handle it, and it will, and it'll handle it really well. The more I'm willing to work with it, thank you in advance, right? I'm always just, thank you for doing this. Thank you for handling this. Thank you for helping me. And I do this all day, every day. And it has changed my life in ways I can't even describe. So that's what I would leave you with. Practice gratitude in advance for all things, big and small, all day, every day. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. The more you're going to be able to surrender, and you're going to see miracles show up.
I love that. That's so true. And if you read any kind of leadership books or podcast or training courses, it's always about delegating and trusting that you have the right team in place. Who better to delegate as a leader to than the all-powerful universe, and
Exactly.
trusting like that's your biggest teammate
Yep.
right there. So as a leader,
Co-creator.
if you can't delegate to somebody who can do the job better than you, then what are you doing? Right.
Right.
So that's
the thing.
key.
It's a practice. Practice it. It
It
does take
is.
practice because it is an act of surrender. But the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more you're going to trust it, and you'll start to see results, and you'll realize, oh, why have I been working so hard when I didn't have to?
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming on to the call today. Everybody out there, please go and take a look at Jennifer's website and check out her books. They're absolutely amazing. They've been a big part of my life, and I want you to share them with your friends and for yourself, and whenever you're trying to manifest what you really want and living your dream life. It may not be as difficult as one had once thought.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Back to the Heart. If you are ready to awaken to a life filled with joy and purpose, subscribe now to Back to the Heart on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And remember, we are all one. So let's do this together and rediscover the essence of what inspires us all. Back to the Heart.